The frontal lobe, also known as the motor lobe, is the largest of the four lobes in mammalian brains. It controls voluntary movement, especially those associated with speech. The frontal lobe is also the last part of the brain to develop, finishing its cycle at age 25. Because of that, it is more susceptible to damage that could affect later development. Have you ever heard someone say, smoking weed at a young age will keep your brain at the age you started smoking? Well, they're not kidding, that's why. The left hemisphere is the analytic side of the brain. If you tend to do more critical thinking, you're considered left-brained. The right hemisphere is the creative side of the brain. If you tend to be more creative and think outside the box, you're considered right-brained. The parietal lobe, located at the top of the head, is the sensory lobe. It manages sensory information received from the three T's: touch, taste, and temperature. All the feeling neurons are mostly densely packed in the hands, lips, eyes, and genitals. Despite its function, this lobe itself can't feel any physical contact. This is why surgeons can operate on the parietal lobe while the patient is still conscious. The cerebrum is separated into the four lobes and the two hemispheres. It controls voluntary movements and mental activity. Cerebral cortex is the outermost layer of the cerebrum. It is involved with most conscious activities of the brain. It also has the consistency of chocolate mousse. Pons handle unconscious jobs such as breathing and the sleep-wake cycle. The brainstem is made up of three parts to keep you alive. The three parts are the pons, medulla, and reticular activating system. It is the pathway from the spinal cord to the brain. Damage to this area is what we would call incompatible with life. In other words, dead. The reticular activating system screens out information and alerts the brain to things that are happening that necessitate its attention. Have you ever been asleep but then suddenly woke up for no reason, especially when you're not sleeping at home? That's why. Your brain alerts you nonstop even when you personally feel like there's no reason to. It's sort of like a virus scanner, always running on your computer. The brainstem is made up of three parts to keep you alive. The medulla oblongata controls vital processes like breathing, blood pressure, and the heartbeat. The pituitary glands produce and release hormones that help in the development of growth, reproduction, and metabolism. Wernicke's area, described by German neurologist Karl Wernicke, plays a central part in comprehending language, both verbal and written. It is also exclusive to the left hemisphere. If damaged, the ability to understand any form of language is gone. Broca's area, exclusive to the left hemisphere, allows thoughts to be transferred into words. Have you ever been hit in the head and you tried to explain how bad it hurt but you couldn't put it into words? That's why. The Broca's area was slightly damaged. The cerebellum helps maintain balance and posture, sort of like your brain's personal balance scale. Damage can affect your motor and balance, resulting in dizziness and lack of balance. The occipital lobe is the visual lobe. This lobe is in charge of visual perception, such as color and motion. Damage to this lobe can result in difficulty seeing objects, color and motions, and even blindness. The temporal lobe is the verbal lobe. Right over your ears in both hemispheres, it's in charge of gathering information based on sound and lets you be able to hear and understand things such as language and information. It also helps out with hearing and balance. Damage can result in impaired long-term memory and difficulty understanding spoken language. The hippocampus helps regulate learning, memory encoding and consolidation, and a spatial navigation deep in the temporal lobe. It is the index for your memory. Damage can result in amnesia. The pineal gland helps the brain perceive an environment's light-dark cycle to help produce and secrete melatonin. The melatonin helps tell your body that once it's nighttime, it's time for bed. Consuming copious amounts of caffeine increases your heart rate, and in turn, keeps the consumer awake longer than needed, throwing off the effects of the melatonin. The hypothalamus influences the autonomic nervous system and manages hormones to keep the body in homeostasis. It is also responsible for the 4 F's: fighting, fleeing, feeding, and sex. Really hope I don't need to explain what that last F is. The hypothalamic sulcus forms the border between the thalamus and hypothalamus. The thalamus is a relay station for every piece of motor and sensory information received for the brain. It acts as a switchboard for the brain, sending sensory information to higher brain regions. The corpus callosum connects the 2 brain hemispheres to allow communication between the left and right sides of the brain.